Hello all! A Nice Day here, bringing you a knife review of this CKF Gnome. It is a Yeti design. I believe they are a custom-made knife maker. And this knife is extraordinarily straightforward. It is a titanium frame lock with a clip point. I think that's a clip point style blade in M390. This is number 38. This is a small batch and limited run, but they did have recently done a second run of these things. They haven't come out yet, but they did pre-orders for them. But it's extremely straightforward. Like it's dreadfully straightforward and basic in what you're looking at here. But it does belie. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Don't listen to what I'm saying ever. No, seriously. But it's a front flipper, and it comes across as a very plain, basic knife. It does do a few things, and it's got some special stuff going on, which we will talk about, but let's get into the specs so I can get to that. With the CKF Gnome, about 3.5 inches of blade, 7 7/8 overall. Handle is, yeah, just a tiny bit over 4 3/8. So the ratios actually aren't bad. You have a decent amount of handle for that amount of blade length. Comparisons to the Conspirator from Flavivi and the Elementum for the small knife and full-size knife. And as you can see, it's very close to the Conspirator, and if you actually pushed it up so that where the blade begins matches on them, it's got about the same amount of blade as the Conspirator, but less handle. So yeah, ratios are pretty good. It is also a pretty slim knife. It's not particularly tall. There's no flipper tab to deal with. And even though it feels thick, it's not too bad. It's about the same as the Conspirator, I'd say. And we will check that in just a second with the calipers as soon as I get these put away. Calipers, do you want to say 0.005? You always do. I don't know why. And then you zero out. Yeah, okay. Thickness, 478 thousandths. Okay, so it's thinner than the Conspirator by a little decent amount. Yeah. It feels solid. That's because the titanium slabs here are actually surprisingly thick. And I think that leads to some of the good feelings and stuff that this thing gives off. 138 thousandths on the blade stock. And the behind the edge, this is not like the super slicer, like some knives are, but it's not going to be 13 thousandths. That's not bad. It's pretty darn slicey. It does get a little bit thicker, a little quicker than some knives because it doesn't have a large bevel. It's sort of got like a bayonet grind kind of thing, half the blade. So you don't have a ton of room to drop. So it gets thick a little quick, but it's not bad, and it does perform pretty decently. Hardware check. You have a T8 captured pivot and T6 on the body screws. Nobody likes T6, but as with almost every single review, you gotta say it because they're on almost every single freaking knife for some reason. I don't know why this thing refuses to focus on the I don't know why that's changing things, but as you can see, it's about 4.08 ounces, so 4 ounces. It's not heavy. It's not an ounce an inch, but it's pretty good. The ratios are not bad here. The last comparison, pardon me, is a comparison to AA batteries, and you get basically 2 full AA batteries within the constraints of your handle. You technically have a tiny bit more that you probably slip up on a little bit and still feel safe. I do. But, yeah, you've got a decent amount of handle here. It's very accommodating, it's very neutral. Alright, so let's start talking about the knife in a little bit more depth. You've got what looks to be a hand satin on the flats, and probably the CKF wash, which CKF does, on the main knife, which is a very attractive knife, but very attractive finish, very attractive knife. But it can be a little bit hard to get and depict on camera, I will admit. You've got basically no branding. Well, you've got no branding. It's down here and here. The only thing on the blade is the M390 and number 38, which, yeah, that makes it look very attractive. Let's be honest. Not seeing anything on the blade on most knives is almost always the best decision. This just looks better. That's, maybe it's subjective, maybe it's just me, but that's what it is. And I'm right. You don't have a choice. As I said, I think it's a clip point. It's got some texturing up here, which is what kind of throws it off. Both the jimping and the texturing, which is also kind of jimping, very comfortable. Swedge, very nice. Most of the belly is up front, which makes getting to the tip, you have to go a little higher, but it's not bad. You still get good tip access for this clip point style blade. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but it doesn't matter because it was nothing. We have a front flipper. That is the only method of operation and actuation for this knife. It is a front flipper only knife, and honestly, it doesn't even look like it would be a good front flipper, right? It doesn't look high enough, doesn't look right. It's super easy. Like, ridiculously easy. I don't know why it is. It doesn't have all the hallmarks of the best front flipper. The jimping is not as tight, and it's not like that wire jimping that I really like. It doesn't wrap around. It is good jimping. It gives you good grip, and it's not too aggressive, but for whatever friggin' reason, just touching this thing, and it wants to go. It is super easy. So, why? Don't know. You could technically put thumb studs on this thing, but they have to go pretty low. About there. That's about the highest they could be. So you're looking at right around there for your thumb studs. Maybe even a little bit lower. And they're definitely going to be in the path, but not as much as you'd think they would be. They'd probably be sitting about there. So you could do it. Doesn't have it. Doesn't need it. Front flipper works great. So I don't mind it. I like front flippers. I like the way this thing's done. And I like the fact that it's surprising as how good it is. This knife is on multi-row bearings, and you can actually see the symbol right there, which is what accounts for that. Yes, please. Wonderful, wonderful drop shot action. Lock bar, there is an insert in there, but you can't see it. It's in there. Good, it is just a basic frame lock, as I said. And the access looks not that great, honestly, right? I mean, it doesn't look like there's that much sticking out there. And yet, you can come from pretty much the side on this thing. That's kind of the name of the game with this knife, if you haven't noticed. This shouldn't work as good as it does. This shouldn't work as good as this does. This shouldn't be. That's kind of what it is. This knife has clearly been thought out and executed, I'm assuming by the designer, to be much more than it appears. It's much plainer and much more straightforward than it actually is. There's a lot more going on here, and a lot of precise decisions that have been made that really elevate this knife. I'll give them that. There is a negative, big negative. Two big negatives, actually, and we'll get there. Pivot has a copper pivot ring on a pivot collar, and I believe that is a hallmark of Yeti knife maker, whatever. I think he does that. And the Gnome, I don't 100%, I could have looked up, I probably should have, but I don't know if it's called the Gnome because he's in Nome, Alaska, or, I mean, like, he's in Alaska and he names his things off that, or he just Yeti and he likes that name. I don't freaking know. Who the heck knows? CKF logo here. You've got texturing, and it's really nice. It seems a lot more plain than it is. It's really nice. It gives good grip. It feels good. It looks surprisingly good. And there's just the little elements. Like, this is not technically a contoured knife. It isn't. But the chamfers are so rounded and come down so far. Like, they literally, if you actually look, see how far that chamfer comes down? It goes onto the actual milling in the face of the handle. This one stops right at the base of it. But this one comes all the way down there. So you get two angles there, and it feels almost contoured. It really does. It feels really good in the hand. This just works, the whole thing. The execution on the edges and everything, I mean, yeah, it's CKF. They do a really good job on those things. And also, if you look really close, you can see the tiny micromilling all throughout the rest of the thing. And that just, it looks really attractive. And this stonewash, this like very large particulate kind of stonewash, it just adds something. It all comes together and makes for something that is greater than the sum of its parts. Really good decisions. It is milled out. On this one, in the original versions, this is important, you have a Timascus pocket clip, or a Zerkutai pocket clip, and as usual, CKF Zerkutai is like some of the best, period. This is gorgeous. And I'm pretty sure this is a zirconium backspacer. I don't know why it's not a Zerkutai backspacer, but I'm pretty sure it's zirconium. It really doesn't look like titanium, and it's definitely not magnetic. It looks a lot like zirconium. Don't quote me on that. I could probably look it up, but I'm not going to. Everything I do is spontaneous, and so that's what's happening here. I'm pretty sure it's zirconium and Zerkutai, though. Heater and lanyard post. Lock bar cutout is on the outside, but it's nice. It's not in the way. Your clip's not going into it. The clip actually hits kind of above it. Also, I've noticed this. It didn't always do this, and I think it's something to do with the clip maybe being used a little bit, and maybe just like lifted a little bit, so it's not quite as tight as it was when I first got it, but it tings pretty substantially. I don't know if that's coming across, but it really sounds good. It tings quite loudly. It didn't always do that. Don't know why it started doing that. I think, like I said, I think it's the clip just being loosened a little bit, so it's just barely touching. And it gets a little bit of positional sort of reverb going, which is, I like it. It's cool. Who doesn't love when their knife makes ting noises? I don't know why we like it. I don't know, but whenever it happens, yes, please. So, one bad thing. That is stop pin placement. It is right on that edge. My God, it is terrible. The plunge grind is back here. It stops away from the edge, so you have basically the entire height of getting that edge up to the plunge grind, which is a decent number of sharpenings. It's not a few. But, well, let's see. Can I get a little pointy object? Yes, I can. See this gully right here? That is where your stop pin sits. And it is right up on that edge. Now, I do think it's contacting it here. So, if you're careful, you could probably expand your sharpening choil forward. But you have to be careful not to hit this. I don't think it's going to be a complete problem, but it is way too close for me to be happy about it. It's making things, at the very least, more difficult, if it's not causing an actual problem. I don't think it's the back end of the blade that's actually hitting here. I'm pretty sure it's this gully, and yeah, I can kind of see that this is where it's like, this is where it actually touches, primarily. You can kind of see there's a tiny little, tiniest, I don't even know if I'm going to get it on camera, it's so tiny, little mark right there, yeah, see? So it sits right there. Kind of that. So I think you should be able to expand it forward if you needed it to. And if you want to. And, I mean, you will eventually, because you're getting good number of sharpenings because it has a little bit of height, but it's not that many. So you should be able to do it, and it should be safe to do. But let's be honest, this thing should have its stop pin just moved up here, it should hit there, and this should be shouldered more. Just shoulder that more. It wouldn't change the nature of the front flipper, just need a crook in there, and that's how you fix this. That wouldn't be that hard to fix. You just make it hit there, put your little gully further back. That's a big issue, but I don't think it necessarily kills this one. The other issue is the price. The price is what kills this one, in my opinion. And, I mean, small batch availability, they've only done now, they're in the process of doing the second run, so it's not an issue. I can't link this thing, but this is a $500 knife. I don't think this is a $500 knife. I get CKF has their knives made in China. They go to Slovakia, or I've heard different stories about whether their actual Russian operation is still in, like, factory is still open, but I know they've relocated, I think, to Czech Republic or Slovakia or something like that. And they do a lot of their final finishing, hand finishing, a lot of work, tuning and everything on the knife afterwards. So it's just extra step of production, and it definitely adds price. 100%, I get why CKF knives are more expensive than most comparative knives. Not always, which is weird, because the CKF Snafu, which I recently got, that's a $580 knife, and yet it's a Peter Rossetti integral at $580. What? That's actually a good price for any integral, right? Like that's not bad if you're doing a collab and you're doing as much as they did to that knife. That one defies belief. Occasionally you get those where it's just like, yes, this is all day. This is totally worth it, but not quite here. This is an overpriced knife. This is just a titanium frame lock. I think this knife is probably closer to a $270 $5 knife that could be jacked up to around $375 with the extra stuff that CKF does, and then add on, your zircutai and zirconium. You're probably looking at a $400, $410 knife if you are willing to account for the added stuff that, yes, CKF's costs are going to be higher because of. Otherwise, it would be, a $310 knife, a $320 knife, something like that. But this is almost an extra 100 on top of that, so no, it's not recommendable. But it's one of those knives that you get, and you're like, damn you. That's what happened to me. I had bought, when this came out, I had bought the previous couple CKF knives that had come out because I was really interested in them, and